You've seen the images, scrolling through social media. They're impossible to miss. Beautiful, modern homes built from simple shipping containers, often nestled in stunning remote landscapes. The promise is incredibly seductive, a stylish, eco-friendly, and most importantly, cheap alternative to traditional housing. For just a few $1,000s, you can buy the shell of your future home. It seems like the ultimate life hack, the perfect escape. But what if that dream price tag is just the beginning of a financial nightmare? What if the cheap home myth is setting thousands of people up for a very expensive failure? The first trap is the box itself. You'll see listings for used containers for as little as $1,000 or $2,000, which sounds like a bargain. But these are often as-is or wind and water-tight grade containers, which is industry code for old, heavily used boxes that are likely dented, rusted, and have spent a decade being battered by corrosive salt spray. More importantly, their original plywood floors were treated with harsh industrial pesticides like arsenic to protect the cargo, making them potentially toxic for a living space and requiring expensive removal or sealing. The alternative is a one-trip container. These are almost brand new, having made only a single journey from Asia. They are clean, structurally perfect, and have pristine floors, but they aren't cheap. Depending on the market, a one-trip 40-foot container can cost anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 or more, as of the making of this video. So, right from the start, the cost for a quality, safe foundation for your home is often double or triple what the dream sellers advertise. Even if you get a great deal on a perfect container, that box needs a place to sit, and this is where the costs begin to multiply silently. First, there's the land itself. Then, that land needs to be prepared. This can involve expensive excavation, grading, and clearing, especially if it's a remote or sloped property. And you can't just place a 4-ton steel box directly on the dirt. It needs a proper foundation to prevent it from shifting, sinking, and to protect the steel underbelly from the constant moisture of the ground, which leads to rust and corrosion. Whether it's a simple gravel pad, concrete piers, or a full slab, a proper foundation is a non-negotiable structural and financial investment. Factoring in surveys, permits, excavation, and materials, the foundation alone can easily cost as much or even more than the container itself, a massive expense that is almost never mentioned in the glossy pictures of container homes online. Here's the great paradox of container homes. The very act of making them livable is what can make them structurally unsound and incredibly expensive. A shipping container's strength doesn't come from its skin. It comes from its frame and the corrugated steel walls acting together as a single unified structure. The moment you cut a hole for a window or a door, you are removing a critical piece of that structural integrity. To compensate, you must weld in heavy steel framing around every single opening to transfer the load and prevent the walls and roof from buckling. This isn't a job for a DIY amateur. It requires skilled, certified welders. The more open plan and full of light you want your home to be, the more of the original strong container you have to cut out, and the more expensive steel reinforcement you have to weld back in. Each window isn't just the cost of the glass, it's the cost of a major structural surgery. A steel box is a fantastic conductor of temperature. In the summer, it becomes a scorching oven, and in the winter, it turns into a walk-in freezer, dripping with condensation on the inside. Turning this metal shell into a comfortable, energy-efficient home requires a serious investment in insulation. Traditional insulation like fiberglass bats is often a poor choice, as any moisture trapped against the steel walls will inevitably lead to rust. This is why most builders turn to spray foam insulation. It creates a seamless vapor barrier and provides high R values in a thin profile. However, it's one of the most expensive insulation methods on the market and requires professional installation. On top of that, running plumbing and electrical wiring isn't as simple as drilling through wood studs. It requires careful planning, specialized fittings to run conduit on the surface, or building out entire interior walls, which shrinks your already narrow living space and adds significantly to the material and labor costs. So, when you add up the real math, the cost of a high-quality, non-toxic container, the price of land, permits, and a proper foundation, the expensive steel reinforcement for every window and door, and the high cost of professional insulation, the dream of a $10,000 home evaporates. In fact, many poorly planned container projects end up costing significantly more per square foot than a modest, traditional wood frame construction. The container itself is just the down payment on a long and often unexpectedly expensive journey. It's not that a great container home is impossible, but the belief that it is inherently a cheap and easy path to home ownership is, for most people, the biggest financial trap of all. Now, hearing all of this might feel discouraging, but our goal isn't to crush the dream. It's to arm you with the truth. Because it is possible to build a smart, efficient, and cost-effective container home if you avoid these traps from the very beginning. So if you're ready to learn the solutions, make sure you're subscribed. Because in our next video, we're going to give you the complete blueprint on how to build one right.